Welcome to The Bone, the podcast that goes deeper. Here we cut through the noise and get straight to the core of the issues that matter. From real stories to raw truths, we dive deep into the conversations that shape our world and challenge our thinking. We're not afraid to dig in and get to the marrow of it all. Whether it's life, culture, or business in sports medicine, we're here to break it down raw and real. No filters, no fluff, just to the bone. With your host, Shelby Daly, we're getting to the bone. This is a clinically pressed, approved CEU podcast. Find the quiz to gain credit at clinicallypressed.org/courses. Clinically Pressed Company, making the complicated simple through results that give back. Find out more at clinicallypressed.org. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Bone. Today we have our guest, Patrick Ohaver. He is over in Indiana, and today we were just going to have a brainstorming session, off-the-cuff kind of conversation. He has been highly involved in athletic training for a very long time and has contributed a lot. So I don't think I can give him justice on all he's done, so I was going to let him give us an idea of what he's done in the past, what he's doing now, and what he's looking to do in the future.
Well, thanks, Shelby. Good morning from Indiana. And like Shelby said, I'm Patrick Ohaver. I'm a secondary school athletic trainer, have been all my career, except for about 2 years in grad school, where I did that in the state of Louisiana. But I'm originally a Midwest person. Grew up in Michigan, went to Northern Illinois. I'm an internship athletic trainer, old school, which was good, I feel, at the time. Learned a lot, did a lot, and was able to be seen a lot. And that undergraduate experience with my athletic trainers, my mentors at Northern Illinois, Mike Braid, Phil Voris, and other GAs, were probably the catalyst for me being involved as much in our state of Indiana, being involved with GLATA, which is the Great Lakes Athletic Trainers Association, which is now districts 11 and 4, but back then and until approximately 5 years ago it was district 4. So that's kind of where I got my, I feel, drive slash emphasis to be involved in giving back to athletic training. So currently, I am the state representative for Indiana to GLATA and District 4, which I will be transitioning off here in March of 2026. So just next month in our GLATA meeting. And then I will not have a position for probably the first time in 10 plus years, at least at the executive committee level. I'm still highly involved in the NATA's Historical Commission. I'm a member of that. I'm also Atlas Ambassador for those secondary school athletic trainers. I'm an Atlas Ambassador for the state of Indiana. And involved in our Regional Athletic Trainers Association. Basically, it's a loose collection of 20, 30 athletic trainers. We meet 3 times a year, discuss things, have an educational thing in July, and try to really promote that. So, that's kind of me. And like I said, I've been involved quite a bit, giving back to the profession that I feel has given a lot to me. I've been highly involved in Indiana. I've been fortunate enough to have been inducted to the Hall of Fame of Indiana, Distinguished Service Award, and High School Athletic Trainer of the Year, Professional Excellence Award in Indiana, and then named a Secondary School Athletic Trainer of the Year for District 4. in the I think I can't remember. Oh, in New Orleans, that was in 24. So very blessed, very fortunate to have received those accolades. So,
Yeah. Well, I think it's well deserved, and congratulations.
thank you.
So as you're going through all the things that you do and are involved in with the Historical Society and just being involved at the state and district level, I think one of the questions I wanted to talk to you about was the involvement of younger athletic trainers or general athletic trainers within these communities, I'll call them associations. And through your time, have you heard why people may be distancing themselves from these organizations that are supposed to support them? Maybe what can we be doing better to bring people back? I mean, I think not just NATA or the state and district levels are seeing a decline in volunteerism. I mean, everybody says at any point in life is busy. But there are a lot of financial constraints and time constraints. So, I think there's a lot more to volunteerism than people think there is. There's a lot of meaning that it gives people, connection, all these different good things that I think get pushed aside at the end of the day. But I guess reflecting on it, what have you seen and what do you think we should do better at?
Yeah, that's a big question, and that's probably a big question that NATA and GLADA has been battling. I would feel since just before COVID hit. I mean, that seems to be a big break point for a lot of things, for a lot of the profession, for association, a lot of things. And just looking historically back, it's just very curious. I was a hiring manager for our hospital outreach program, supervisor. So I was in charge of recruitment, retention, and at our high point, we had about 25 athletic trainers that were direct reports to me and another supervisor. And then I reported to the manager, who reported to the vice president of sports medicine, who was my former boss and is a athletic trainer himself and a physical therapist. So I thought we had it pretty well locked in as far as athletic leadership, or leadership who were athletic trainers at the highest level. And then COVID hit, and then it was all wiped out in June of 2020. And then that started that was probably the end of the athletic training involvement. Luckily, I was able to get picked up by another hospital or organization, but the level of athletic trainers just disappeared, and we still have an open position now. But going to I saw it developing probably 2015. I was actively, we had a fishing, we call it the fishing lure job posting. We kept the job posting out on Indeed just to have interest. And if somebody showed interest, I was on the phone or emailing right away, like, where are you from? I hired people from Utah, from Montana, from Florida, and some took jobs sight unseen, which was back in my day, I think that would be not really a good idea. But with the advent of, and that was before Zoom and for all this cool stuff, I mean, I'm in Crown Point, Indiana, and you're in the Kenai Peninsula. So, I mean, who would have thought we'd been able to have a visual conversation 8 years ago,
Yeah.
So all those advents helped, but it was hard to recruit athletic trainers. So why? Because I didn't feel that there was enough people in the pool. But going to volunteerism, so less people in the pool. And as you said, life is tough. Life gets busy. I feel that student debt, luckily back in my day, as I'll always say, I didn't have that. And back in the day, college was expensive, but it's not as expensive as it is now. And did I get a master's degree? Yes, I did. But I was a GA. I was a GA at Centenary College in Louisiana. I traded my professional expertise to be a GA for tuition, and I got a room in the basement of a dorm, and I got a whopping like $5,000 a year, which back then was a lot. And I bought a meal plan, and but I got a 2-year. You did your 2 years, and you got a master's degree for quote unquote free. But that was just the way it was. Now you have to graduate with a master's, and there is no trading your time for tuition as much. So, but why volunteerism? So let's pool, and I think the financial burden, the financial stress, is great to younger professionals, and I feel that young professionals, early career athletic trainers, feel that they will not do a good job if they volunteer to be member of a I'll just use GLADA as an example, to be the secretary of GLADA. Okay, that is a daunting position, in my opinion. It's a lot to do. But I ran for District 4 secretary, and that is a big position, in my opinion. Unfortunately, was not elected to that position, but that's okay, and other people will carry that on. But getting young people they feel that they have to do such a good job, and they have to commit so much time to it. Did I commit a lot of time to my role at district representative? Yes. I disliked being on Zoom calls during soccer games when they had them, because they always had them in the evening, or our state meetings, which were in the evening times, and I'm in Central Time, and most of Indiana is on Eastern Time, so all of those people were in Central Time, so it was convenient for them. And then we had morning meetings, which were 8 o'clock in the morning for them, which was 7 o'clock for me. And as my time has gone on in my career, I've turned into not a morning person, because I'm more of a second shift person, and so, but I did it, and I like the morning meetings because I can devote all my time to it, and I can contribute. Was I able to contribute during basketball games and soccer games? Yes, but it's hard to quote unquote do your job and being in a meeting. And I would always tell my AD, it's like, hey, I have a state board meeting at 6. I'll be in and out. I'll be watching the game. And to the credit of the council, to my colleagues on the GLADA board or state board, I told them ahead of time, hey, I have a game, so I'll be in and out, and they're totally acceptable to that. And that's they understood, and I always apologize as the people pleaser that I am, but they're like, oh no, go ahead, you got to do your job, and that is true. The best meetings were baseball, because I just sat way down in the bullpen and listened, and but as fate has it, when you're in a meeting, things happen. So somebody gets hit by a pitch, you have to run all the way down, and it's a big deal.
Do you feel, as a younger professional, I always felt like it was kind of crossing the line to ask to take those meetings during the day, during my work schedule. I'm just wondering if maybe that's a perceived limitation of some younger athletic trainers. I've seen different schedules and different settings and all that, and just breaking away for meetings sometimes more difficult. I don't think I took advantage of it enough in other employment settings I was in. But when you built, how's the best way to say this? When you were in these positions, obviously you communicated to your employer that you had these meetings. were they supportive, and did they understand what you were doing on a broader scale for the profession and even your direct employment for that employer? Or did you just kind of roll over and just, I need to do this? How did you present?
Athletic trainers, you've got a plan for everything. But when seconds count, is your emergency action plan as ready as you are? Meet Easy EAP, the digital emergency action plan app built specifically for athletics. Easy EAP puts your EAPs right at your fingertips on your phone, tablet, or laptop so you can act fast, stay compliant, and keep your athletes safe. Update protocols in real time, share with staff instantly, send mass alerts, and carry every venue's plan in your pocket. No more binders, no more digging. It's time to modernize your emergency prep. Visit easyeap.com and be ready for anything. Easy EAP, your plan when it matters most.
Are you an athletic training student dreading the BOC exam? After years of school and thousands of dollars of tuition, you shouldn't have to rely on outdated flashcards, expensive textbooks, or pen and paper practice tests that look nothing like the real computerized exam. That's where AT Study Buddy comes in. Created by athletic trainers for athletic training students, AT Study Buddy is the online study platform built for today's tech-savvy learners. You'll get 7 full-length practice exams that feel just like the real BOC, plus 10 domain-specific tests and more than 250 interactive study tools like drag and drops, flashcards, anatomy hotspots, and fill-in-the-blank modules. You can retake exams, review your results, and actually track your progress. And the best part, AT Study Buddy users consistently report first-time pass rates above the national average. Students, educators, international professionals transitioning to the US, and even certified athletic trainers coming back from lapses are using it to step confidently into the next phase of their careers. For about the price of a single practice test, you get a full month of unlimited access, or ask your program about discounted group license with faculty dashboards that help support your success. Study smarter, not harder. With AT Study Buddy, your journey to certification starts here. That to your employer.
Well, that's great. Yeah, when I was a supervisor, I went into the office around 9, and if I had meetings, we just scheduled meetings, and if it didn't conflict with one of our our staff meeting, I would move it around. The famous doodle polls. What are your availability? I would look ahead and say, okay, I have a staff meeting on this day. I can't do it. Can't do it here. There was a GLADA meeting that I had an event. Our GLADA executive committee meetings, other than March and October, are virtual, and the November one is very quick. Budget approval, usually things. I had an event that night, so I had a proxy cover from Indiana for that. I felt a little guilty, but that's what those mechanisms are for, but my employer, they were very supportive of it, because they, especially my former boss and my current boss as well, but they like their employees being involved in their organizations and bringing credibility to that organization, as well as the employer. But it's time management, and if you have to leave while you're doing your job, say you just check out of the Zoom call, and or put it on away and come back, and but don't say, what did I miss? Because they're not going to come back through that. But
Yeah.
But they were supportive, and that is probably an obstacle to younger professionals, because they feel they haven't proven themselves, or or need that credibility, or to build that credibility. I've been at my school 19 years. They know me, and I know how things are probably going to, evolve during a basketball game, and they know where to find me. So But
I'm glad that we are educating students to ask for more in their compensation and all that. I feel that's kind of trickled down to this volunteer problem is, well, if I'm not getting paid for it or being recognized for it, I don't need to do it. So I feel that it's great that we're asking and trying to negotiate for more compensation, but the catch-22 of it, I think, is a lot of younger athletic trainers feel that if I'm putting in my time or expertise, I should get compensated. And I think they're confused on that volunteerism. Even though it's free, it's supposed to give you a sense of purpose and meaning. You're giving back. You're trying to make the situation better by the end of when you come out of it. I thought I heard that one of the districts pay their committee. I forget which one it is, but do you think that will ever happen across the nation? I mean, Alaska, we have 70 athletic trainers that are certified, and I think there's really only maybe 20 working in the state. So obviously for our state association, I don't think that will ever happen. Maybe the district level, it could be a possibility, but I think people get confused that some of these districts are, making money, but it's going directly right back into the cause. So paying out people may be a little difficult. I think I've brought up NATA and the salaries that they pay their members that work at headquarters, which is somewhat off-putting, but those are big positions that are, managing a nationwide profession. I guess, what are your thoughts on compensation for some of these positions, and will it ever happen, or should it keep as a volunteer position?
great question, and I posted that when you I believe you brought it up in a LinkedIn podcast or post a couple years ago, and we've really talked about it too in the hallway conversations, as it would be, to my colleagues who are district directors, former district directors, and leadership in our districts and slash state. Our state, our state is definitely not as vast as Alaska. No state is, of course. We do have quite a few athletic trainers, around 1,000, I think, maybe a little over 1,100. But payment, that would be a hard thing. Even at the NATA level, they have cut a lot of staff. I do know that. And as I have been fortunate enough, and I think you're talking about good timing at the right place. I'm fortunate enough to have been to Carrollton, to the office 3 times for archiving trips, and the NATA reimbursed all of that. Flight from Ohaver to Dallas, and our room, and they paid for meals, and they had meals, and it was, I felt a little guilty, but I was doing work on the behalf of the membership and trying to archive, along with our whole committee, the history of the NATA and preserve it for future. And we spent 3 solid days in July inside from 8 a.m. till they closed at 5. And we would have worked longer, but they wouldn't let us stay with no supervision. But that time is gone, and I feel sad about that. And also, we went for JCM twice. I remember the last big JCM, again, the big historical markers, COVID. So January of 2020, I remember we went down 2 days early for JCM, and a lot of committee heads were there. We were there. That was a great networking time, and we were reimbursed that whole trip. So I feel that was quote unquote payment for
Mm-hmm.
my service. Now, did I have to take PTO? Yes. Did I have to get a substitute athlete trainer for Highland? Yes. But that my employer took care of that, and many, I felt a little guilty leaving, my school and, I have a game that Friday, but it's something I wanted to do, something that I was involved in, and my employer was very supportive, my school was in support of it, and people go to meetings for other things. People miss, for other things, for business purposes, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm as guilty as the other athletic trainer. The school will survive without you there. The sport will go on without you there. The sport will go on if there is no athletic trainer there, and that's a big. Is that a smart idea? No, but is that wise? No. Is my athletic director will get very, very, very nervous if there's nobody there. Very nervous. But I have yet to see a major sporting event canceled because there's no athletic trainer / medical provider there. But going back to the I don't feel that they will pay, and I really researched hard on which district pays their. I think a lot, like I will admit, GLADA / District 4 will reimburse our district director to attend NATA. There's a mechanism in there that the president of GLADA gets one night reimbursement for hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Back a long time ago, before again the seminal event of COVID, before that, all state reps got money to go to NATA for, they got reimbursed. I think it was it was a blanket $500, and you could use that as you wish.
Well, that stretched way further before COVID too, I feel.
Yeah, but if $500 covered your flight, boom, you turned that in. If it paid for 2 hotel nights, boom. Now,
Yeah.
and I feel that it's kind of wrong. Like committee day. Committee day is a day earlier than NATA, so you have to get in the night before. So that's an
Mm-hmm.
additional night in the hotel. It's an additional day that it's not. And then NATA starts that afternoon with your welcome reception and everything. That's as the historical commission, that's when we did our work. We interviewed some legacy interviews, we did things, we had committee meetings, but I got no reimbursement for that from NATA. Got no help from anything else. So it was a financial strain, but it ate into my CE money that I'm fortunate enough to get from my employer. So I'm not attending I didn't attend Orlando last year for financial reasons, and I quote unquote didn't need the CE, and I wasn't going to go down a day earlier for committee day. And that's state leadership day. And there's a lot of cool stuff that happens at the committee day, but it adds an additional night to your hotel stay. That's $200, $300 a night. So that do you cut off then you can't stay the whole time in NATA, or you can. It's just it's a $2,000 trip.
Yeah.
And who knows how much it is from Alaska. So, but
well, so you brought up the CEU portion, and so I feel domain 5 competencies are weak in athletic trainers. However you define it, the business aspect, the professionalism, admin, paperwork, all that type of stuff. I would debate that going to these conventions, even though you're getting CEUs for going to the seminars and all that, I think because COVID has definitely shifted towards online preference for a lot of people, and I think we forget how the in-person events are very important, along with volunteering, putting in a few hours to help set up, all those different things. know if you have any information, but what would it take for volunteering at the state, district, national level to make those CEU hours? I mean, I don't think you should be able to get all 50 CEUs, but if you're attending district meetings, even if you're not on the board, if you're just an athletic trainer in that state or district, to learn about what those associations are doing for you or how to get involved, could that be a CEU option at the end of the day? Because I think I don't want it to be transactional, but you have to make it so that people want to get involved and listen and see what's going on. I mean, compensation's a big conversation, and South Carolina just got approval for their high schools in one district to increase pay by $9,000 and a $5,000 bonus. So that's what happens when you get involved in these institutions. And I think it's just educating on where the most impact's going to happen for what you want to see in the profession. I think NATA gets beat up a lot. They're supposed to provide resources and help protect at the umbrella level, but if you really want to start seeing changes, you have to start going to the district and state meetings and present the ideas that you want to see change in. So I guess, is there a way to commute volunteer hours to CEUs?
Great question. I wish there really would be, because I echo Dr. Coots as far as, more domain 5, that would be. And Dr. Coots and his comrades do a great leadership presentation at GLADA for the last 5 years. Unfortunately, it won't be this year, but I always go to that, and it's super great. It started out in a small room, and it exploded into a giant, a bigger room, the Lake Michigan room, and it's relatively filled the whole time. But I attend as a supervisor. I attend more of the domain 5 things, salary compensation talks, ethics, leadership. I love the leadership talks because those interest me. An ACL rehab protocol, new things I'm interested in, but something I just don't do a lot of every day, so yeah, I wish that there would be a mechanism for, like, hey, I serve as the Indiana State rep for GLADA. You can verify that I've attended all the state meetings that I'm supposed to do, and I participated in the March meeting and the June by the minutes. Your show was present. And as my colleagues say, we like to get our name in the minutes as far as seconding or making motions. But I feel that's professional development. I feel that's contributing to athlete training. Should you be able to get 50 CEUs just by doing that? No, but I don't know. Could there be a category D CE? Maybe you get 10 for serving on the board and contributing. I feel that's fair. I don't. Yeah. Would that encourage more volunteerism? I don't know, but I do want to kind of have some time to talk about our new GLADA strategic plan initiative that just launched. So we can come back to that in a minute. But just to answer your question, I feel that there should be some more domain 5 in symposium, and we have done that at GLADA. I've seen that at NATA, and that's where, again, committee day and state leadership day, that is all quote unquote domain 5. But is that in your NATA CE packet? No.
Well, I think it's a sense of purpose for volunteering. That's the core root of it. And then it's giving back and looking at how culture is evolving. I think we've become very transactional. And if we're promoting that in our programs if we're not giving away our expertise for free, then we have to kind of keep those cores at some root if we want volunteers to keep coming back. And I think a lot of the unhappiness is not understanding what business these associations are in. A lot of feedback I get for NATA is they're just doing so much, it kind of muddies the water on what their true mission is. And I think people get very confused on what they're supposed to be getting out of it because they're not necessarily seeing it. I think the H2F situation in the summer of 2025 was a great example, but it's very reactive. So it's very hard for people to see the outcomes of those situations because they're not happening necessarily all the time, or you just don't get to hear about it because it's very state specific or setting specific, those types of things. So we want to uplift everybody as a whole. That's what NATA is for. But some of these more local associations, you don't really hear much about sometimes. So it's trying to create those connections and creating opportunities for people wanting to be involved. I think people associate volunteering a lot with time. Do you have any other examples of how people can volunteer and contribute without having to suck up so much time?
Yeah, well, it depends on how much time you want to put in as well. I mean, do I make it a point to make every state meeting in Gladomine? Yes. And finance council meeting and finance committee meeting for the state. I try. And I've missed a few, but do I feel guilty or shame? A little bit, but it's things happen. But there's other people that and that have missed more, and no fault of their own, because they work or something has happened or they're on a trip or what have you. But it's you get what you can put out of, you give what you can get out of it, I guess. And if you're, chair of membership committee and in the state, you're a voting member of it, but how much do you really put into the conversation? You can or you can't. If you feel like you have a voice, government affairs committee head, he's that's a lot. That's a big thing. We just kind of curious that you brought up the H2F thing. That was a nationwide thing, but in Indiana 2 weeks ago, a House bill came up, 1003 or 1003, that they were going to combine the state licensing boards of OT, PT, and AT all in one licensing board. So our lobbyists, we had a Sunday EC call, and what are we going to do? Empower the membership. So they sent out an e-blast, and members communicated their state congressman, woman, and congresspeople, and our lobbyists thought it would get removed by Tuesday, and that language was end up being removed out of the bill. So, but that was a quick advocacy thing, and you didn't hear about it in Alaska because it doesn't pertain to Alaska; it pertains to Indiana. So it, but had it gone through, then it may have been national news. But the NATA was notified, and they provided some templates, where you just click, and here's your congressman, put your name, address, and off you go. But the NATA has a vast resource to help the states advocate, in my opinion. But the NATA is not going to improve your salary. They're not going to improve your job. That's just not ever going to happen. When I was growing up, when I was coming through, through Northern Illinois, everybody talked about salary and how much you don't get paid, and they still talk about it. I don't know, but that's kind of where that lands as far as advocacy part is there, and it's reactionary. Yes, our lobbyists. We get a legislative update from IATA every week when it's in session, and they highlight the bills that are may or may not be involved with athletic training or health in the state of Indiana. So if you take time to read it, and it's a lot of a lot of legal legislative mumbo jumbo, but okay, that might affect me. That doesn't affect me because this has to deal with something else. But that's why you pay a lobbyist a lot of money to watch those things, and when they see it coming down the pipe, and you have a good lobbyist like we do in Indiana, they have those hallway conversations. Hey, how far is this really going to go? Well, it's not going to go very far, or whatever. So we're not going to raise a big hullabaloo about it. When it's really going to, this is really going to happen. Okay, are you sure? Yeah, it's going to happen. Okay, so then then he alerts everybody, and then we start the grassroots. So I hate to say it is reactionary, but that's politics, I guess. That's a lot of our job is reactionary. Like storm is coming in. It's coming. I tell my AD, hey, it's going to be here at 7:00. Well, okay, we're still going to play. I'm like, okay, yeah, I know you're going to play. And
well, I think it's reactive because other people are being proactive is the biggest thing, with this physical therapist trying to become primary care providers. That's where making sure that your practice acts are up to date, and then making sure that, you're pushing the boundaries a little bit. I think athletic trainers get too nice I think we're good with what we have, but people still don't recognize us, and we keep increasing the scope, so we keep not necessarily watering down, but we become more ambiguous. People still don't understand us, where, I still think that we need to push for getting out from under physicians' standing orders. I think we should work independently. I think most people do at the end of the day. I think you still need the relationship with a doctor because you're going to refer, but how PTs can go open up their own clinics and everything, and they don't need oversight. I know it's a lot more liability on us, but we are already in a highly litigious, legal, highly risky setting already. We are supposed to be there for first response, so there has to be emergency that's happening. So I just, that's where I think some of our efforts need to start getting pushed, is being able to be independent and be in the market as a full healthcare provider.
I think differently on that, but that's because I'm an older, more seasoned athlete trainer, I guess, and I'll freely admit I don't have. I'm the lone provider at the high school, and I don't have the resources, the time to devote, nor do the students really have the time to devote to a rehab program, or and I'm dealing with minors too, so that's another thing. So I really back off of a lot of things intervention wise. Now other colleagues do cupping, do soft tissue massage, instrument assisted tissue mobilization, and because they have the time, they have the facility, and they have the training to do such. Are they better than me as an athlete trainer? Maybe. I don't know. But at the end of the day, am I more reactionary in my position at the school? Probably. I'm also very preventative. Why did I go out to the football field and pick up, fill in potholes before we had turf? Because kids would, hurt an ankle, or, break a bone, or, in their ankle. Or why do I do things that are quote unquote not my job, but I feel that they're preventative? Why do I shovel out the front of my door in the school? Because the way the wind tunnel works, it blows the drifts, so, and the custodians do a great job, but sometimes they just don't get it. So but I am less risk averse in my career. but there are other. And do I want to do more? Sure. Do I? I had a great conversation with a colleague of mine who's moving on, and because he wants to be able to practice at the top of his license, and do some dry needling and do some things. That's just not my mode of practice, and I don't have one. I don't have the knowledge. Two, I don't have the equipment. Three, to say I don't have the want to is probably not true, but I'm not going to stick a needle in a kid. So at this point, same thing with IVs. Could I have used that in Louisiana when I did? Yeah, and did. We had kids with full body cramps, and guess what they got? They got an ambulance ride with an IV. And sat in the. Would that have been beneficial? Yeah, but I feel that's a skill, even as a former EMT, not a paramedic, former EMT. That's a skill that has to be practiced. Same thing with suturing. You have to do it. You just can't go to a 2-day seminar and okay, I can do suturing, and then 6 months. Oh, you have a kid with a basketball got elbowed in the face. You're going to suture him up in your training facility. I feel no, but if you did that every day, surgeons do that at least 3 times a week. And they do multiple times, or their PAs or their MPs or their first assists. They do that. That's just taping.
Well, I mean, I don't even think doing these advanced skills are necessarily top of your scope either. I think it's your definition for the setting you're in. I mean, if you look at doctors and nurses and all that, there's some stuff that they're just not going to do, and there's stuff that they will do all the time. So, I mean, I don't think, being risk adverse, that's our job at the end of the day. That's what an athletic trainer does. And then, I think you're minimizing what you do, to be honest. I think you do a lot, and it's really it's the job description of the setting. High school, I really don't, I would say it's a small percentage that actually get to do a full rehab program with an athlete. Your hours, the demand, it just doesn't make sense for you to be able to execute that skill, but you're still prepping, you're evaluating, and you're doing emergency response along with the risk mitigation, which is the bread and butter of what an athletic trainer does. And that's where, we keep getting extraneous on the more skills, the more value we bring to someone. I don't know, like you said, I could have all these skills, but I never use them. So I never actually get super good at suturing where I don't leave a scar. Being able to do an IV on the first poke, so I can have the knowledge of it, and I think that's valuable, but I think athletic trainers are smart enough to know when to refer. I think having the knowledge of it is awesome, because then you can educate and the proper route to refer. It's the most efficient path, which is the biggest problem in healthcare right now, is people get put in the revolving door and they have to see 4 specialists before they get any care or a diagnosis or anything. So I think in your setting, you're still very valuable, and you bring a great deal of skills and value to your athlete population. You're one person at the end of the day. You can't. I think that's where athletic trainers get stretched out, is we think we have all the knowledge and we have to execute it. And it's how efficient can you be with that knowledge at the end of the day?
And I think that leads to burnout and job dissatisfaction, and, at the end of the day, I'll echo one of my colleagues, the biggest skill / privilege I feel as athletic trainers at secondary levels to be able to send somebody for an x-ray, write an x-ray order.
Mm-hmm.
That would cut a lot of healthcare costs down.
Yeah,
I feel
it would.
I could send a kid to immediate care. I need 3 views of his ankle. And send it to doctor whoever. Boom, that's it.
Yep.
But well, thank you for that. And that's part of it. But I feel that's a lot of issues with younger professionals too. They feel like they have to do it all, and they have all this, and they have a ton of knowledge. They do, because and that goes to a little bit why very few programs will teach Domain 5. They just don't have time for it because they have to teach to the BOC. They all worry about the pass rate, and that's the big, measurement stick of your program. And a lot of programs don't dive into the history of athletic training, and they don't know about GLADA meeting. They don't know about state meeting, although more and more now it's coming back around, which is kind of our GLADA strategic plan initiative that we just launched in June.
Yeah.
We went out and we were assigned to educate programs about our GLADA meeting coming up and what the importance is and how fun it is and what opportunities are there for you as a student. And it really boils down to networking and a little bit and education, but it's the knowing those people when the time comes when you need a question answered or you need a job or you need I can put a face with a name, and I met that person at GLADA, and let's bring that person in for an interview, or I will recommend that person for such and such a job. So
if you're an athletic trainer who's ever scrolled a job board and thought, I wish I didn't have to sift through all these personal trainer and physical education teacher jobs just to find real athletic training roles, you're not alone. Athletic Trainer Finder was built by an AT for ATs to fix what's broken in the job market. Every week, they track athletic training jobs from across the country and spotlight the roles that actually respect the profession, the ones with clear pay, realistic expectations, and strong settings. They don't pretend the market is perfect. They show you what's out there and call out what's worth your time. The mission is simple. Make the athletic training job market more transparent, more honest, and more fair. Whether you're burned out, curious, or ready for your next move, Athletic Trainer Finder puts the power back in your hands. Visit atcfinder.com and create your free account to see this week's jobs. That's atcfinder.com so you can find what the market really offers. You work hard. You train hard. You take care of everyone else. But when was the last time you treated yourself? That's where Source Soap comes in. Created by athletes for athletes, Source Soap is an all-natural recovery soap that helps wash away soreness, inflammation, and fatigue. With ingredients like peppermint, eucalyptus, and activated charcoal, it's basically self-care disguised as a shower. Whether it's after a long training session, a tournament weekend, or just a tough day, Source Soap helps you reset, recover, and smell amazing. Because taking care of your body shouldn't stop when you leave the gym. So go ahead, treat yourself. Head to sourcesoap.com and use the code TTB15. That's TTB15 for 15% off your order. Because recovery starts with you.
Well, and I think I want to hear more about the strategic plan, but I think that's one of the loopholes that some athletic trainers still haven't caught on to is if you want a job, you need to know somebody. I don't agree with it most of the time, but it's getting your face out there and getting to know people, and they can get your foot in the door or they're going to hire you. It's very hard to go into a job and basically a blind interview of they have no idea what your skills are. And I think that's, going back to the value that you bring at your job. I don't get to see the execution of skills. And I think that's one of the problems with athletic training is that, we can talk about ROI all we want, but we don't really talk about the efficiency of execution on the rehab or the evaluation portion of the skills that an athletic trainer brings. I mean, I worked at an MLS academy and it was a newly certified athletic trainer, and all she did was soft tissue. massage. And I was like, I don't know what you're contributing to this player if that's your go-to treatment. First off, biomechanically, that's really hard on your body. Secondly, it's a feel-good service, so yes, everybody's going to request it. Secondly, I don't know if that's the most efficient care that you can provide that person to get back to playing at a high level. So it was, the efficiency of how you execute a plan. Obviously, not every plan's going to work, and that's the beauty of athletic training because we have the time and ability to do that. But I talked to Kevin at Preventex, and I think he's doing some cool stuff with pulling your documentation, and it's giving you outcomes from the athletic trainer on the services that they're providing, which I think is needed. And I don't know if I posted about it, but in interviews, I think you should ask somebody to tape an ankle in front of you. I think you need them to carry out some of those skills because working at the hospital, asking someone to do a thumb spica for a cast that was newly certified, they'd only worked lacrosse as their upper body sport. They didn't work football. So they had no idea how to apply a tape application to the hand. And that was a big job responsibility because we had multiple hand doctors and we had a lot of thumb and wrist injuries that needed casting and heat. We worked on it for a good 2 or 3 months to try to get the quality of his application down. And I thought that was a big red flag of what are we doing in our programs? Those are bread and butter skills that many other professions don't get. I've had EMTs hit me up of when I was working on set for film, they're like, can you teach me how to tape an ankle? And I'm like, I don't want to because that makes you more competitive. And I don't even know if that's really in your scope. But, it's those types of things.
True. Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that when we had the big program that in the summer, quote unquote, downtime, we would bring our staff in for competency, checkoffs. And one of those was tape an ankle. You don't have to tape it the way I tape it. I don't have to tape it the way Shelby tapes it.
Yeah.
But there are some key things you need to have in there. And let's see. And some were like, whoa, and so we we're like, okay, let's try this differently. Just try this. What do you think about this? We had some great, gosh, I miss those times. We had some great, we did a full scale mock triage, multi-victim event. I brought in my good friend, Dr. Lacey Runyon from Wisconsin. And we modeled it off of Indiana State's presentation they did at GLADA for a couple of years. And it really exposed some weaknesses in our staff, and it exposed them but not to shame them or not to belittle them, but they're like,
well, that's
okay,
the time to reflect and figure it out.
Yep. And I was fortunate enough to get our theater kids from the high school, and they loved every minute of it because they got to play, and really, over dramatize athletes. We had a heat emergency, we had, medication overdose, all these things, and you had to respond and you had to do it, and we evaluated, and then we did a debriefing. That was a good time back then, but
yeah,
it kind of went off the track of volunteerism on that one, but
I think it goes to that business side of it is when I was doing per diem in Philadelphia, I was covering a lot of the Catholic high schools, and they'd ask me to tape an ankle, and they're like, oh my God, this is way better than anybody else that's come through. And I'm like, this is bread and butter. Like, it's a standardization at the end of the day. You might apply it a little differently, but it shouldn't be loose. It shouldn't be cutting. It's all the safety aspects. And then it's also the business side of, budgets are tight on tape all the time. So if you're going to have to cut it off 2-3 times to get it right for that athlete, that's, $5 a roll of tape that's going out the window because your application isn't efficient enough and not doing the job. So I think, domain 5, it's reflecting on those different aspects of how you're carrying out your business that I think athletic trainers aren't getting and even just breaking down the ankle tape job of why are you doing a stirrup this way? Why would you reverse it? And I asked newly grads, and they're like, I don't know. That's just the way I was taught to put on an ankle tape. So we're not even breaking down to the foundations of why we're doing stuff, and I think that's a big red flag in itself.
I totally agree. And going back to programs, they have so much to teach in so little amount of time, and they miss some of the soft skills. So I've been fortunate enough to precept a student at school, and work on their soft skills, talking to people, being having confidence. Go talk to they're not going to bite your head off. I mean, they. Was I in that situation as a young professor? Yes. And I had great support from a team doctor, and the physical therapist was the program director. Was coach intimidating? Yes, he's a big dude, and concussions don't exist, and I get it. Blah blah blah. If a bone's if bone's not sticking out, you're gonna play. Well, one time there was a bone sticking out, so he was good with that. But you just got to be able to manage those things. And I'm like, listen, would you rather have a kid that's at 50% and can't do anything, or let's put the next kid in who maybe only gives you 75%, but and sometimes they would take the 50% kid, and then he gets beat, So
yeah.
But stand up for yourself, But at the end of the day, they're not gonna. I'm gonna tell them. I tell them. I always tell them. I was like, well, if you decide to play this kid with a suspected broken leg, I will tell the judge that I told them not to play him.
And I have it documented right here.
Yeah, I'll document it. We still live in a free country. There is free will.
Yep.
You can go against my recommendations at the end of the day. But
yep.
And if they choose that, I'm going to lose a little sleep over it, and I'll talk to my athletic director, and it is at the end of the day. But but yeah, that doesn't really go back to volunteerism, but it has to do with job satisfaction and retention. You got to have a good support system. You got to have good leadership. So.
Yep. So tell me about the strategic plan.
Oh, sure. Well, GLADA, in June of 25, we worked on revamping the GLADA strategic plan, and we really, part of that was one of them was well-being, which is a pillar, athlete training well-being overall, so to help support that, but also engagement and stewardship. So one of our initiatives was all programs, athlete training programs that were housed within GLADA, so that's District 11 and 4, were given to one of our CCAT reps. So we have about 10. I could be wrong, but early career, whatever it is, CCAT, career education, early career athlete trainers. And so one of those, and then one was paired with a GLADA EC member. So I was assigned 3 different schools along with our CCAT rep, and our GLADA secretary did a great job of putting this presentation together just to meet with the students, usually virtually. I was fortunate enough, Indiana Wesleyan in Marion, Indiana, that's where my CCAT rep, she practices there, so she was the in-person part, and I came in as a virtual, which was funny. But we did a 15-minute presentation of what GLADA is, what GLADA offers. The annual meeting is the big thing where you can get education, social interactions, and networking, and really, open some eyes to some student programs that may or may not know what GLADA is, what the districts do. And we had a great response this year to our Indiana student symposium in October, which has been probably the best it's been in the last probably 5 years. So it's coming around, but there's so many students that don't know what GLADA is. And it is it is a financial thing. I remember when I was a student, we all kind of piled into one room or two rooms, and we had to pay for registration, and then we made our own meals, but there was no student program back then. You just went along with the ATs and learned stuff and wrote down stuff in a little notebook. So, but so now we've really pushed that for our meeting, and our meeting attendance is coming back up in person, because I feel in person is the best. But going back to your networking and thing, this forum right here, or Zoom or virtual meeting, that wasn't around 10 years ago. So you always had to either phone call, okay, but a phone call is so kind of impersonal. You don't get to see people's face, their reactions, their body language. So networking, going to the meeting and meeting Shelby Daly was a big thing, okay, or meeting Dr. Coops, the famous man that he is, meeting him and seeing him, that was the thing. Now you have podcasts, you have virtual meetings, and that your network is so broad now. I mean, just think about it. Shelby Daly in Alaska is, and her voice on To the Bone podcast and LinkedIn, you touch so many athlete trainers, and other athlete trainers who have other podcasts. The reach is so much broader now because we're so more interconnected. But I still feel that meeting at a convention in the exhibit hall and talking or taking a selfie or whatever is so much more impactful and meaningful to me than just listening or doing a virtual meeting. I hate virtual meetings, so especially virtual executive council meetings. But they're necessary and they're convenient and they're cost effective, and that's a detriment to it. But I always advocate for let's go in person if we can. I can't do in-person state meetings because I'm 3 hours away from Indianapolis, and that's in a time change. So that's where all the action happens. So, but
so with the strategic plan, I think a lot of places forget, the smart aspect of it, of how is it measurable and how you're gonna see if it was successful or not. How are you guys implementing those types of measures?
Great question, Dr. Daly. So the Gladys secretary, Chris Ensign, put together a spreadsheet, and if you completed it, when you completed it, and some feedback on our student engagement portion. So that's, I feel, measurable. You can see how many people we reached out to. I still have one school that we're having difficulty communicating with, that I'm responsible for, but I feel like I've done as much as I could, to and some people don't have the time. The time that is involved in athletic training education, I'm not involved in that realm, so I can't really truly speak, but for what I perceive is so regimented and so structured that if you try to insert anything that's outside the syllabus, even for 15 minutes, it throws the whole world apart.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's I did 4 years as a bachelor's degree, but I worked, quote unquote, we did our internship hours in the training room or at our other rotational sites after, quote unquote, after 2:00 and 2 till whenever it was over. And did we learn a lot? I feel we did. Did I get to see? You got to learn by seeing, not so much learn by doing it on a book. But and same thing with my student that I was able to precept. She saw a shoulder reduction that I was able to accomplish, and an elbow reduction that I was able to accomplish. And I kind of felt bad because I didn't give her a chance to really try it out. But she goes, "Oh no!" It's like, but I get it. But she got to see a lot of things, but she had to be there to see it. So
Yep,
How we measure
exactly.
it, that's kind of how we're measuring. We're trying to put some um, metrics to the strategic plan, uh, and just trying to, it's obviously some of them are virtual metrics or not hard. Like we increase student involvement, 15%. We increased annual meeting attendance by 20%. Those kind of things. We had all contested elections. This last time. That didn't happen, but um, that's we're getting more people to come out for positions. So, and people, it's hard to tap those people on the shoulder. I've tapped you on the shoulder many times to get involved, and I've had other people tap you on the shoulder on my behalf to get involved. So, but just because your voice is needs to be heard in the boardroom. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't. But that's about the metrics that, and I leave it to the academic people to really hammer down the rubrics and the metrics of the strategic plan. Whereas, not to belittle myself, but I just don't. If it works, it works, and yeah, if it engages people, I feel it's successful.
Yeah.
So,
You're the one out there executing it.
exactly. Why do you get involved? Because I feel it's the right thing to do, and my mentors did it for me, and I met people through that, and it's just an altruistic thing that I wanted to do and continue to do, to be involved, and I like being in the room where it happens. We did a great podcast with Jeremy Jackson out of Texas about that. So,
yeah.
Going to payment, GLADA is part of the executive board. They will pay for your room while you attend the meeting. Is that payment for your time? I feel yes. You get access to the hospitality room, which they give you food.
Mm-hmm.
I feel, is that payment for your time? Is it equal? No. I don't
It's
know.
creating opportunity, though.
Yeah.
It gives you the opportunity of possible roadblocks for you to get there, and moves those out of the way, which is what leadership does at the end of the day. So, would you much rather write it off or have to write it off on your taxes, or get the cash?
Right.
I don't know. Depends how you want to structure it.
Right. I'm fortunate enough to live within 50 miles of our meeting place in Illinois for GLADA, so I donate that mileage back to GLADA. That's because it's very minimal to me. But somebody coming from Minnesota, they need a flight. They get that reimbursed. They get that. So
yeah.
And that's part of why our reserve account is robust. And we've done some things to access the reserve account to increase opportunities for athlete trainers, advocacy, communication, involvement, to operationalize some of that money that quote unquote sits there in a war chest. So without having to raise dues, which, and NATA, for as, poor as they were able to withstand COVID and raid a little bit of their savings to get through those times without raising dues,
Mm-hmm.
And having conventions that just weren't profitable for them. And because just like GLADA, the NATA's main moneymaker is the convention. And they were locked into those, Philadelphia and New Orleans are the last lock-ins that they've got to withstand. And then hopefully, perhaps, because attendance is lower, membership is lower, they will be able to go to smaller venues like Salt Lake City. That's where I want to go. Denver. Juneau, Alaska. Maybe not. Well, or Anchorage, rather. Maybe.
Yeah. That'd be almost easier.
So, but I hope that answered the question.
Yeah. Well, I guess, do you have any parting thoughts before we wrap this up?
I know we've talked for a long time. We probably could talk a longer time too.
I know.
And we just kind of go on, and then when I listen to the podcast in my car on my commute to work, I have to kind of go in between. And parting shots. I mean, get involved. Ask to get involved. If you know somebody who is involved, reach out to them and say, "Hey, I would like to be involved in the state association. What do I need to do?" And then have an idea. Well, we have this committee open. We have this committee open. We have this committee open. Because there are many, I would have to say, state organizations that have committee positions open. And you don't have to be the president of the state or the secretary of or vice president of the state to contribute. Start small, see if you like it, how your time manages, and then be in the room where it happens and see how it goes. And maybe if you don't like how the room works, then you don't have to go to be president, But also, in my opinion, Peter Principal shows up. Hey, I'm going to be Gladys secretary. Haven't done anything in the state or whatever. And you drop into this thing, and now you're, whoa, this is way, way, way harder than I thought it was going to be. You get, quote unquote, and you get it by, I hate to say it, by default, because nobody else ran. So now you're kind of like, ooh. And so now you're promoted to the level of your incompetence, or people rise to the level of their incompetence. And great talk by Coots and Conan, Peter Principal, two episodes. Yep. Listen to it. But that's what happens. And so now you are in a position, you're like, wow, this is more than I bit off more than I could chew. And now you feel dissatisfied. You feel like you're not doing a good job, and you have a bad experience. Now, are you likely to go to the next level or to stay in that? I feel it takes you a year in any position to get your feet wet, read the room. As glad a rep, it took me, I felt, 3 years, because one of those years was all virtual. And I don't like a virtual meeting, but that's kind of the parting shot. But you don't have to. The NATA did a great talk in July with the state leadership. You don't have to be the president of the state association to be involved to make a difference. And don't think you have to do it all.
Yeah. And I think, learning from Coots and Conan is leadership. You don't have to have the title position. It's what you're providing, and, educating or moving stuff out of the way. I'm in a small town, so access to government officials is a little bit easier when they come and visit. And I always try to make sure I show up and at least mention athletic trainer to them, get a feel if they know what it is, and try to educate them so that when athletic training bills or things happening nationally come up, they can make that association, especially since there's so little of us in Alaska. It's, trying to make an impact, and it's thinking outside the box of how athletic trainers can contribute to the community. Right now, we just got approval for increasing medical access to the rural communities. And I'm thinking telehealth, and athletic trainers have perfect platforms for that to address preventative health and longevity. That's what we're good at. And I think, how do you segue that into elevating athletic trainers to be more respected within the state or nationally? Because people will talk about those initiatives when we bring change. So.
Very good. Very well said.
Yeah. So, well, thank you so much for being on. I will definitely have you on in the future. You have to keep poking me on topics.
That sounds good. You have a lot of great topics on LinkedIn, and happy to talk about it. Lend my voice. Is it correct? No. Is it? It's my opinion, and my opinion only. From what I've seen in my 28-year career as an athletic trainer, something like that. So
it's bringing in all the perspectives, because I have what I've experienced and you've had what you've experienced, and we're both still athletic trainers. So how do we make it better for everybody?
Right. And we got a NATA presidential election coming up in July. So
yep.
That would be a good topic as well.
Yep, exactly. So, well, thank you so much, and I hope to have you on soon.
All right, thanks, Shelby. Thank you very much.
That's it for today's episode of To the Bone. I hope we've sparked some new thoughts, challenged your perspectives, or simply reminded you to dig a little deeper. Remember, life isn't just about what's on the surface. Sometimes you've got to cut deeper and get to the bone of what really matters. To the Bone podcast is a product of Daly LLC. It's hosted and produced by Shelby Daly, ATC, and Randy Daly. No clinical decision-making should be based solely on one source. While care is taken to ensure accuracy, factual errors can be present. For more on the show, visit www.tothebonepodcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Get involved in the conversation. You can find us at www.tothebonepodcast.com. Drop us topic suggestions or be a potential guest. We're all about connecting with you, our listeners. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep cutting deep.